In the hot sands of the ancient land of Canaan, in an era governed by tradition and the immense weight of honor and lineage, a story was unfolding that would traverse the ages to inspire generations. In this setting, under the mantle of ancestral customs in which every decision could alter the fate of entire families, the figure of Tamar emerged with courage, pain, and ingenuity, revealing that even the most twisted paths can give birth to the seed of lasting transformation. Judah, son of Jacob, and one of the pillars of the family that dominated both heights and challenges, was recognized for his status and for a responsibility he bore as a sacred burden. His name resonated in villages and cities throughout the region, evidencing the rise of a clan that, despite setbacks and trials, was firmly established as the support of an unchangeable tradition. It was in this environment of power and rigid conventions that Tamar, a young woman of delicate grace and indomitable spirit, entered Judah's household through a marriage destined to unite fates and perpetuate the lineage. Tamar's journey began with her union to Judah's firstborn. The marriage, celebrated according to established precepts and rituals, had been arranged to consolidate a family alliance that carried within it the hope of a prosperous future for the entire family. However, the narrative would soon reserve painful twists. Whose life had been marked by acts of wickedness and impiety, had displeased the eyes of the Most High. Thus, as recorded in Genesis 37, verse 7, fate intervened severely, and in an irrevocable decision, the Creator cut short life, bringing it to a tragic end. This sudden loss not only removed the presence of a life companion, but also cast Tamar into cruel vulnerability in a society where a woman's worth was measured by her association with a man, whether her father or her husband. At that time, the law and customs of the ancient East dictated that upon the death of a husband, his brother should assume the obligation to unite with the widow in order to produce offspring in the name of the deceased, thereby ensuring the continuity of the family lineage. With this expectation, Tamar found herself once again under the yoke of an inevitable destiny. Her second husband would be Onan, Er's brother. However, the promise of preserving the family, which combined divine purpose with cultural conventions, soon turned into a source of disillusionment. Onan, aware that any child born of the union would not carry his name, and therefore the inheritance meant for him, refused to fulfill the obligation. In a deliberate act of defiance, whenever he lay with Tamar, he avoided consummating the union, spilling his semen on the ground to frustrate the purpose of levirate marriage. Such behavior, immoral and disrespectful of the divine commandment, further incensed the designs of heavenly justice, and as reported in Genesis 39, verse 9, the Most High did not tolerate such transgression, causing Onan to also meet an abrupt and tragic fate. With the death of both companions, Tamar found herself immersed in an abyss of uncertainty and helplessness. In a time when a woman's identity was inextricably linked to the man who protected her, the widow was left without support, condemned to a long wait and a state of devaluation. Still under the stern gaze of a patriarchal society, Judah, gripped by apprehension and superstition, hesitated to unite Tamar with his youngest son, Shelah. Accepting only the vague promise that when the young man reached maturity he would marry her, Judah instructed Tamar to return to her father's house, a step that symbolized both the humiliation and the exile of a woman who, despite her efforts, could not secure her own destiny. The narrative grew more complicated as time passed and Shelah matured, but Judah's promise remained unfulfilled. Tamar, with the shadow of her lost husbands looming over her existence, lived in a state of restlessness and injustice. The wait for something that never materialized led her to reflect on the weight of a tradition that neglected her fundamental rights and undermined her dignity. Amid the silent pain and accumulated frustration, the young woman realized that succumbing to passivity meant accepting her own invisibility within the family, and that only a bold action could reverse the decrees that had been imposed upon her. Moved by an impressive spirit of resilience, Tamar devised a risky but resolute plan. She knew that amid the festivities and daily activities of the family, there would be an opportunity to rewrite her own story. At a moment revealed to her through reliable information, she learned that Judah was heading to Timnah to take part in a traditional custom, the shearing of the flocks. Seizing that occasion, Tamar made a decision that would forever change the course of her existence. She removed the garments that symbolized her mourning for the loss of her first husbands, and, with a heart pulsating with courage, adorned herself with a veil that concealed her identity, assuming a carefully chosen disguise to avoid immediate recognition. With her appearance transformed, Tamar positioned herself strategically at the entrance of Enaim, a point along the road leading to Timnah, where the flow of people and the festive atmosphere provided her with ideal cover for her daring undertaking. Every minute of waiting was marked by subtle tension. The young woman's mind brimmed with uncertainty and the fervor of a greater purpose. She knew that this act, loaded with risks and profound meanings, could overturn the fate imposed upon her by a system that denied her the possibility of bearing children and preserving the family honor. When Judah, immersed in his own affairs and unaware of Tamar's transformation, approached the place, the encounter took place in an atmosphere of confidentiality and impulsiveness. The patriarch, guided by his instincts and inadvertently by his own loneliness, drew near the veiled figure waiting at the entrance of Enaim. Tamar, with a mixture of determination and serenity, prepared to negotiate her future in an unexpected manner. Between measured words and silent gestures, she demanded a guarantee that went beyond empty promises: the seal, the cord, and the staff that represented Judah's authority and lineage. These objects were not mere accessories, but tangible symbols of a responsibility and a legacy that permeated the family relationships of that era. The pact sealed during that unexpected encounter, however, harbored within it the secrets of an uncertain future. Tamar, firmly convinced that fate could no longer continue to be so arbitrarily unjust, gave her consent to that clandestine relationship, aware that the truth would eventually come to light in its own time. After that encounter, the young woman returned to her home, donning once again the garments that identified her as a widow. But now her inner self overflowed with the flame of a new possibility, the spark of a legacy that she had claimed with courage and cunning. Time, relentless in its march, brought with it the revelation that would shake the honor of an entire family. Within a period of approximately 3 months, the news spread like thunder. Tamar was pregnant, and the origin of her conception was far from clear. The murmurs of people and the weight of public scorn once again intruded into Tamar's already troubled life. When Judah learned of his daughter-in-law's pregnancy, indignation and shame mixed with the fear of seeing his reputation tarnished. In an act of fury and despair, he ordered that Tamar be taken away and await a severe punishment, echoing a tradition that deemed adultery an unforgivable crime. However, the inexorable course of events reserved a twist. At the moment when Tamar was being led away to face the stipulated punishment, she, with surprising serenity, revealed the truth that had hitherto been hidden in the shadows. Amid the tumult and the mounting tension, Tamar presented the objects, the seal, the cord, and the staff, demonstrating that these belongings belonged to Judah. In an instant laden with significance, the patriarch recognized that the cause of the pregnancy was intrinsically linked to his own action, an undeniable fact that unmasked the hypocrisy and contradiction of his sins. The words uttered by Judah, when confronted with that incontrovertible evidence, resounded with the force of an unexpected confession. He admitted that, in some way, Tamar was more righteous, for he had not fulfilled the promise of giving her his son Shelah as expected. That confession, as laden with sorrow and regret as it may have seemed, also marked a turning point in Tamar's story. The relentless imprints of destiny were rewritten by a woman who, upon understanding that only a bold action could rescue her dignity, risked her reputation in the name of a lineage that otherwise would have been doomed to obscurity. The secret union that led to Tamar's pregnancy culminated in the birth of 2 sons, whose destinies would intertwine with divine decrees and extend beyond the time lived in that troubled period. Among the births, one son attracted special attention. Perez, distinguished among the descendants, Perez would come to be remembered as a fundamental link in the genealogical chain that culminated in the rise of King David and subsequently in the coming of the Messiah, as recorded in the sacred scriptures. In this manner, Tamar's boldness, her choices, and the courage to defy the impositions of an inhospitable convention not only restored her honor, but also ensured that Judah's legacy would be perpetuated and acquire a new dimension, leaving an indelible mark on the history of Israel. As events unfolded, Tamar's account resonated not only as a chronicle of personal tragedies and victories, but also as a testimony to the human capacity to fight against adversities imposed by an order that already seemed unshakable. In small moments of introspection, the story invites us to reflect on the fragility of the institutions that govern the fate of individuals and on the inner strength that can transform pain into power. Tamar, challenged by both the severity of customs and the deeply rooted prejudice, used her intelligence and determination to reverse a cruel destiny, and in doing so, carved an example that would echo through the pages of history. It is not uncommon, during those long nights preceding dawn, to recall Tamar's journey and feel inspired to question the price paid for maintaining traditions and to acknowledge the urgency of reinvention when justice is denied. Her saga reveals that, even when fate seems sealed, the audacity of a single decision can drive the transformation of an entire reality. Judah, once portrayed as an unshakable figure and bearer of indisputable authority, had to confront his own demons when he found himself forced to recognize the hidden justice in Tamar's actions. His admission, although belated, reflected the fact that true honor is not sustained by empty promises, but by acknowledging the rights of those who fight to preserve family tradition. In a context where every action reverberated in the lives of countless people, Tamar's gesture redefined not only the course of her own existence, but also the understanding of human relationships and the relentless quest for dignity. Revisiting each chapter of this story, the listener is simultaneously invited to look beyond the superficiality of customs and to delve into a more sensitive understanding of social injustices. The narrative demonstrates, for example, that amid the silence of long waits and the frustration of abandonment, the importance of every choice, no matter how small it may seem, is fundamental in constructing the legacy of a family and in perpetuating a name that transcends time. Tamar, through her actions, created an opportunity to rethink the role of women and their transformative strength within a system dominated by male authority and immutable rituals. Over the days and seasons, as the murmur of history nearly faded, among the crowds Tamar's saga remained as a vibrant echo, a reminder that there is no immutable destiny when courage is allied with cunning and the conviction to seek justice. That lesson, hidden among the details of the narrative and the verses dating from ancient times, resonates clearly. Challenging the status quo can be the beginning of both a personal and collective revolution. Every recorded detail, from the initial union with to the secret encounter with Judah, bears with it nuances of an internal and external struggle where the human heart is faced with vital needs, such as the right to offspring and the preservation of honor. Thus, when Tamar found herself facing the threat of being condemned for supposed immorality, she found the strength to transform that moment into an opportunity for redemption. Her ability to persevere, even when every sign pointed to despair, became a symbol for those who also harbor the desire to break chains and rebuild the path toward a fairer future. Although times have evolved and customs have altered the paradigms of what is considered acceptable, the essence of Tamar's story continues to remind us that dignity and the pursuit of truth are eternal. In every word echoed from the ancient scriptures, there is the account of a woman who refused to accept an imposed fate, who challenged not only the social order of her time, but also planted the seeds of change that would come to benefit an entire lineage. Thus, Tamar's journey is not confined solely to her existence in the shadow of neglect or the losses suffered due to the disregard of customs. It also encompasses the discovery of an immeasurable inner power, which culminated in the revitalization of an entire family tradition. By assuming her role in the history of Israel, she not only ensured that Judah's name would endure through her son Perez and his descendants, but also redefined through bold gestures what it meant to resist the injustices of an unforgiving society. When one examines this chapter from the annals of the past, a nearly tangible lesson is revealed. Although the current of fate may seem immutable, the actions of a single resolute heart can alter the course of events. And in that context, Tamar shows that every obstacle can be overcome by an act of bravery, transforming adversity itself into a source of renewal and hope. Today, as we listen to this narrative that comes from time immemorial, every word carries the weight and brilliance of a legacy that refused to be erased. Tamar's story, with its dramatic nuances and unexpected turns, is, above all, the testimony that even when justice seems distant, determination and self-respect can illuminate a path along which honor and continuity are forged through individual deeds. At the twilight of those days when reality seemed to have sealed the destiny of those who dared to think differently, Tamar lifted her spirit and, in a gesture that blended vulnerability with power, rewrote the rules imposed upon her. Thus, when we recall the saga of that woman who defied precepts and conventions, what emerges is the portrait of someone who, with wisdom and boldness, managed to transform her despair into a milestone of hope for all who would come after. Every line of this account is an invitation to reflect on the capacity for reinvention and on the value of courage in the face of adversity. If there is something Tamar's story teaches, it is that even in circumstances where all seems lost, there is always room for resistance and transformation. And in that process, even the rigidity of tradition may yield before an unwavering will to rewrite one's own destiny. And so, within the pages of the sacred records, Tamar's journey remains vibrant and current. The choices she made, from the arranged marriage that seemed to seal her fate to the secret encounter that awakened a new future, are more than mere events. They are living lessons that show the human spirit. When driven by the desire for justice and the need to preserve one's own dignity, can overcome barriers that seem insurmountable. To contemplate this narrative is, ultimately, to recognize that true transformation comes from within, and that when determination joins with love for one's lineage, extraordinary achievements become possible. It was that inner strength which propelled Tamar to defy the conventions of her time, that not only restored her honor, but also revitalized the history of one of the most influential families in Israel, ensuring that the promise of a better future was fulfilled with the arrival of new generations who would carry in their own steps the echoes of a silent revolution. Tamar's story reveals, therefore, that the true legacy is not found in blessings granted without effort, but in the courage of someone who decides to fight against predetermined circumstances, affirming with every gesture that justice and dignity are achievements that depend on one's own actions. And thus, when the annals of history are reviewed, the memory of Tamar resounds as an eternal example of resilience, where every obstacle was transformed into a step toward redemption and the continuity of a lineage that refused to be ignored. This tale, every verse and mention, from the early steps of her marriage with through Onan's painful refusal, to the decisive episode in which she risked everything to claim her right, serves to affirm that human sensitivity and determination can indeed reverse the decrees imposed by the most deeply rooted customs. Tamar, with her journey filled with trials and silent victories, teaches that true honor is not confined within the shadows of an unchangeable tradition, but flourishes in the courage to transform one's own pain into lasting hope. Therefore, as you listen to this narrative from remote times, interwoven with the echoes of sacred words and the resilience of an indomitable spirit, you are invited to reflect on the power each one of us has to redefine our own history. Tamar's saga is the vivid proof that a person's strength can surpass the imposed shackles, opening a path of justice and continuity that lives on in the memory and lineage of a people. In every corner of the ancient land of Canaan, where tradition shaped every gesture and every breath seemed to carry a determined weight, Tamar's story shines as a testimony that moments of darkness can be transformed into opportunities for renewal. This account, filled with intense emotions and unexpected nuances, remains as a beacon for those who, even in the face of the greatest challenges, refuse to resign themselves to an imposed fate and instead fight to write their own chapter in the history of the world. Thus ends the chronicle of a woman whose determination was capable of rewriting her destiny. Tamar, by facing adversity and transforming abandonment into action, not only perpetuated her name, but also the legacy of a family and a people who, throughout time, learned that freedom and justice are the fundamental pillars of true honor. May the account of this extraordinary journey awaken in every listener the courage to question, to reinvent themselves, and to seek, with every action, the realization of a future where dignity and truth reign supreme. For just like Tamar, each of us possesses the power to transform our own paths and leave an indelible mark on the history of those who will come. And in this eternal cycle of challenges and triumphs, the memory of Tamar echoes like a hymn to resilience, demonstrating that even amid losses and injustices, human spirit can rise to rewrite the rules of its destiny. May her story, replete with twists and lessons, inspire everyone to find within themselves the strength to overcome any obstacle, thereby creating a legacy that nothing can erase. If you found yourself moved, if you reflected, and if you discovered, in this story, a reason to believe in the human capacity for overcoming challenges, do not forget to subscribe to our channel to follow more accounts that celebrate the strength of the spirit and the power of transformation. Like this video, share it with your friends and family, and activate notifications so that you never miss another inspiring piece of content like this. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together, we continue to celebrate the courage and resilience that make us true protagonists of our own stories. Until the next episode,